My brother framed me for theft at work, then security footage revealed the truth. I never imagined that the person who would destroy my life would be my own brother. Not a stranger. Not a jealous coworker. Not even an enemy. My own brother. And the worst part, I trusted him, completely. The day everything fell apart started like any other Tuesday morning. I arrived at Hawthorne Logistics at 6:45, 15 minutes before my shift. The warehouse was already alive with activity. Forklifts beeped in the distance. Workers loaded shipments onto trucks. Managers walked through aisles holding tablets and coffee cups. I had worked there for nearly 8 years. In those 8 years, I had never received a single disciplinary write-up. Not one. I was known as the dependable guy. The employee who stayed late. The employee who volunteered for overtime. The employee management trusted. I planned to spend the rest of my career there. At least that's what I thought. Morning, Ethan. I looked up and saw my supervisor, Mark. Morning. He gave me an unusual smile. A forced smile. The kind people wear when they're hiding something. Immediately, I felt uneasy. Before I could ask what was wrong, he said quietly, "The regional manager wants to see you." My stomach tightened. The regional manager. Yeah. Why? Mark avoided eye contact. I don't know. That was a lie. We both knew it. I followed him toward the administration offices. With every step, my anxiety grew. When we reached the conference room, I noticed something strange. Human resources was there. Security was there. The regional manager was there. And sitting at the far end of the table was my older brother, Dylan. The moment I saw him, my heart skipped. Why was he here? Dylan and I both worked for the company. Different departments, different responsibilities. But the same warehouse. He looked nervous. Almost scared. The regional manager folded his hands. "Ethan, please sit." I sat down slowly. Nobody smiled. Nobody spoke. The silence was unbearable. Finally, the HR director slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs. Bank statements. Inventory reports. I stared at them without understanding. Then I saw the number. $72,000. Missing inventory. The regional manager leaned forward. "Ethan, we've discovered a significant theft operation." I blinked. "What?" "We believe company assets have been stolen over several months." My confusion quickly turned into disbelief. "What does that have to do with me?" Nobody answered immediately. Then Dylan spoke. His voice shook. "I didn't want this to happen." I turned toward him. "Dylan." He looked down. "I saw you taking the equipment." For a moment, I genuinely thought I had misheard him. "What?" The room seemed to tilt. "I saw you," he repeated. The HR director opened another file. Witness statement, signed by Dylan. My own brother had just accused me of stealing. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh. Waiting for him to admit it was some horrible misunderstanding. But he didn't. Instead, he lowered his eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry," the regional manager continued. "We also found access logs connected to your employee ID." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is insane." The security manager pushed several papers toward me. The logs showed equipment leaving the warehouse. The system indicated my credentials were used. The evidence looked overwhelming. But it wasn't real. Because I had never stolen anything. Ever. I didn't do this. The room remained silent. I didn't do this. My voice echoed against the walls. Nobody moved. Nobody defended me, not even Dylan. Especially not Dylan. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. I was suspended immediately. My company badge was confiscated. My access was revoked. Security escorted me from the building like a criminal. Hundreds of employees watched. Some whispered. Some stared. Some recorded videos with their phones. 8 years of hard work vanished in less than an hour. As I walked through the parking lot carrying a cardboard box of personal belongings, I heard someone call my name. It was Dylan. I turned around. Anger exploded inside me. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He glanced around nervously. "It's complicated." "Complicated? You just destroyed my life. You don't understand." "Then explain it." He swallowed hard. "I can't." That answer told me everything. He could explain. He simply wouldn't. I stepped closer. "Did you lie?" His silence was all the answer I needed. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. Not guilt. Fear, as if he was terrified of someone finding out the truth. Then he got into his truck and drove away, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the meeting again and again. The witness statement. The access logs. The missing inventory. Something wasn't right. Someone had spent months creating evidence. Someone had planned this carefully. And somehow my brother was involved. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Friends. Coworkers. Former colleagues. Most of them believed I was guilty. A few offered sympathy. Almost nobody offered support. Then my mother called. The moment I answered, she said, "Ethan, what were you thinking?" I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. "You think I did it?" There was a pause. Dylan wouldn't lie. My chest tightened. Of course. Dylan wouldn't lie. That had been the family story my entire life. Dylan was perfect. Dylan was trustworthy. Dylan was responsible. Dylan was always believed. And me, I was always expected to prove myself. I hung up without another word. For the next 2 weeks, everything got worse. My suspension became termination. My reputation collapsed. Job interviews disappeared after background checks. Bills piled up. Savings disappeared. Meanwhile, Dylan continued working. Continued earning. Continued living normally. At least on the surface. Because the more I thought about his behavior, the more something bothered me. He wasn't acting like an innocent witness. He was acting like a man hiding a secret. And eventually, I discovered what that secret was. That secret began with a phone call from a number I almost didn't answer. It was 11:30 at night. I was sitting alone in my apartment, surrounded by unpaid bills, rejection emails, and the kind of silence that makes a man question everything he has ever worked for. My phone vibrated on the coffee table. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to answer. "Is this Ethan Miller?" "Who is this?" There was a pause. "My name is Carla. I work the night shift at Hawthorne Logistics." I sat up. "How did you get my number?" "From an old emergency contact sheet." "Listen, I don't have much time." My heart started pounding. "What is this about?" "It's about Dylan." I froze. "What about him?" Another pause. Then she whispered, "He lied." For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Carla continued, "I saw him in the restricted inventory section 3 nights before they suspended you. He wasn't alone." "Who was with him?" "Raymond Cole." Raymond Cole. The warehouse operations manager. A man with keys to every restricted cage, access to every shipping report, and enough authority to override almost any system. I gripped the phone tighter. "Are you sure?" "I'm positive." "Did you tell HR?" She laughed bitterly. "I tried. Raymond found out. The next week my hours got cut in half." The room went cold. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because what they did to you wasn't right. And because Dylan came in tonight after hours again." I stood up. "What?" "He and Raymond were arguing near the loading bay. I heard your name." "What did they say?" Carla lowered her voice. "Raymond said, 'Your brother took the fall. Keep your mouth shut, or you're next.'" My entire body went still. There it was. The first crack in the wall. The first proof that I wasn't crazy. "Carla, is there security footage?" "Yes, but Raymond controls internal requests." "What about backups?" She hesitated. "There is an old system for the East Loading Bay. Most managers forget it exists. Maintenance uses it. Can you get access?" "No. But I know who can." "Who?" "Frank Alvarez." I knew Frank. Everyone at Hawthorne knew Frank. He was the 62-year-old maintenance supervisor who had worked there longer than half the executives. He fixed cameras, doors, alarm panels, conveyor sensors, and almost everything management ignored until it broke. Frank was quiet. Old school. Honest. And he had never liked Raymond. The next morning, I drove to a small diner 2 miles from the warehouse. Frank was already there, sitting in the corner with black coffee and a newspaper. He looked up when I walked in. "Sit down, kid." I sat across from him. Before I said a word, he pushed a flash drive across the table. My throat tightened. "What's this?" "Something you need." I stared at it. "Frank." He leaned back. "I don't know everything. But I know enough. You didn't steal from that warehouse." For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. "What's on it?" "Footage from the old East Bay camera. 3 nights before your suspension." My hands trembled as I picked up the flash drive. "Why didn't anyone find this?" "Because Raymond didn't want anyone to find it." Frank's face hardened. "That old camera isn't connected to the main security dashboard. It records to a local backup drive. Raymond probably forgot it existed." I swallowed hard. "Have you watched it?" "Yes." "And?" Frank looked me directly in the eyes. "It's Dylan, my brother." Even though I already suspected it, hearing someone say it out loud still felt like being punched in the chest. Frank continued. "Dylan used your employee badge." "That's impossible. Security took my badge after the meeting. This happened before that." I remembered immediately. 2 weeks before the accusation, my badge had gone missing for 1 day. I thought I had left it in my car. Dylan had been at my apartment that weekend. He had borrowed my jacket. My badge had been in that jacket. My stomach twisted. He stole it from me. Frank nodded. "Looks that way." I went home and plugged the flash drive into my laptop. The video was grainy. Black and white. Timestamped at 2:17 in the morning. The east loading bay was nearly empty. Then two figures appeared. One was Raymond. The other was Dylan. My brother wore a dark hoodie and a baseball cap, but I knew his walk. I knew the way he moved. I had grown up watching him walk ahead of me my entire life. Raymond opened the restricted storage cage. Dylan pushed out a pallet covered in black shrink wrap. Raymond scanned a badge. The system accepted it. My badge. Then Dylan looked up directly at the camera. For 1 second, his face was clear. There was no doubt. It was him. Not me. Him. I watched the clip 5 times. Then 10. Every time, the anger inside me became colder. Sharper. More controlled. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't panic. This was planned. My brother had stolen from our employer. Used my badge. Signed a false witness statement. Watched me get fired. Watched my reputation collapse. Then went home and let our mother call me a thief. I wanted to confront him immediately. I wanted to drive to his house, kick down his door, and make him say the truth to my face. But I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I decided not to react emotionally. I decided to win. The next morning, I called an attorney. Her name was Rebecca Shaw. She specialized in employment law and corporate misconduct. After watching the footage, she didn't blink. She only said, "Do you have the original file?" "Yes." "Do not send it to anyone yet." "Why?" "Because if we move too fast, Raymond could destroy other evidence." She opened a legal pad. "We're going to do this properly." That was the beginning of the end for Dylan. Rebecca sent a formal preservation letter to Hawthorne Logistics. It demanded that all security footage, access logs, emails, inventory reports, disciplinary records, and communications related to my termination be preserved. 3 days later, Hawthorne's legal department contacted her. Their tone had changed. Suddenly, they were very interested in speaking. Suddenly, they wanted to review the matter. Suddenly, they cared about fairness. But Rebecca told them nothing about the flash drive. Not yet. Instead, she requested a meeting with corporate leadership. Not regional management. Corporate. 2 weeks later, I walked back into Hawthorne Logistics. But this time, I wasn't escorted by security. I walked in beside my attorney. The same employees who had watched me leave in shame now watched me return in silence. Mark, my former supervisor, looked like he had seen a ghost. We entered the corporate conference room. Inside, sat the vice president of operations, the HR director, 2 corporate attorneys, Raymond Cole, and Dylan. Dylan went pale when he saw me. Raymond tried to look calm. He failed. The vice president began politely. "Ethan, we're here to better understand your concerns regarding your termination." Rebecca opened her briefcase. My client was falsely accused, wrongfully terminated, and defamed based on fabricated evidence. Raymond leaned forward. "That's a serious accusation." Rebecca turned to him. "Yes, Mr. Cole. It is." The room became silent. Dylan stared at the table. The HR director cleared her throat. "We had access logs and a witness statement." Rebecca nodded. "You had manipulated access logs and a false witness statement." Dylan's head snapped up. Rebecca placed a printed still image on the table. It showed Dylan at the loading bay. His face clear, his hand on the stolen pallet. Raymond's expression changed instantly. Dylan stopped breathing. Rebecca said calmly, "This is from the East Loading Bay camera. Timestamp 2:17 a.m. 3 days before Ethan Miller was suspended." Nobody spoke. She placed another photo down. Raymond opening the restricted cage. Another. Dylan pushing the pallet. Another. Raymond scanning my badge. Then she placed the flash drive in front of Hawthorne's corporate attorney. "The full video is on this drive." The vice president turned slowly toward Raymond. "Is this authentic?" Raymond opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Dylan whispered, "I can explain." I finally looked at him. "Then explain." His eyes filled with panic. "I didn't want to do it." I laughed once, coldly. "You didn't want to steal from the company. Or you didn't want to frame me." He flinched. Raymond snapped, "Shut up, Dylan." That was the moment everyone in the room understood. Dylan wasn't just nervous. He was guilty. The vice president stood. "Raymond, Dylan, leave the room." Raymond protested. "This is ridiculous." The corporate attorney said, "Leave the room now." They left. But the damage was done. For the next month, Hawthorne launched a full internal investigation. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Raymond had been running a theft operation for almost a year. High-value electronics. Industrial scanners. Specialized routing equipment. Commercial tablets. Anything that could be moved quietly and resold. Dylan had joined him 6 months earlier. At first, he was just helping move inventory. Then he became deeper involved. Why? Gambling debt. More than $130,000. Sports betting. Online casinos. Private lenders. Dylan was drowning. Raymond found out and used him, or maybe Dylan used Raymond. I stopped caring which one came first. What mattered was that when the thefts got too large to hide, they needed someone to blame. And Dylan chose me. His own brother, because he knew people trusted my badge. Because he knew I had no history of misconduct. Because he knew that if the accusation came from him, our family would believe him. And they did. My mother called 3 times after the truth came out. I didn't answer. Then she sent a message. Ethan, we need to talk. Dylan is in serious trouble. I stared at the words for a long time. Dylan was in trouble. Not I'm sorry we didn't believe you. Not we failed you. Not we let your brother destroy your life. Dylan was in trouble. I deleted the message. A week later, my father came to my apartment. He knocked for 10 minutes. I finally opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Ashamed. Son. I didn't invite him in, he swallowed. Your mother is devastated. Is she? He nodded. Dylan made mistakes. Mistakes. That word nearly broke my patience. He framed me for a felony. My father's eyes dropped. He was scared. So was I. He had no answer. I lost my job. I lost my reputation. People called me a thief. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get hired. And the whole time, you and Mom chose Dylan. My father's voice cracked. We didn't know. You didn't ask. Silence. That was the truth. They didn't ask. They didn't investigate. They didn't wait. They simply believed the golden son and condemned the spare one. My father reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Your mother wrote you a letter. I didn't take it. He looked hurt. Ethan, please. No. He's still your brother. I stared at him. No, he stopped being my brother the day he signed that statement. My father looked like he wanted to argue. But he couldn't. Because deep down, he knew I was right. I closed the door. 2 months after the evidence surfaced, Raymond was arrested. Dylan was arrested the same week. The company had reported everything to law enforcement. The total loss was over $400,000. Because interstate resale was involved, federal investigators became interested. The same people who had once escorted me from the warehouse now watched as Dylan was let out in handcuffs. I wasn't there to see it. I heard about it from Carla. She sent one message. It's over, but it wasn't over for me yet. Hawthorne Logistics offered me my job back. Same position. Same department. Back pay included. A formal apology. A sealed correction to my employment record. Rebecca reviewed the offer. It's decent, she said, but not enough. So we negotiated. Hard. In the end, Hawthorne agreed to a confidential settlement, full back pay, damages for wrongful termination, a neutral employment reference, and a written statement clearing my name. They also promoted Frank. Carla's hours were restored. Raymond's leadership chain was restructured. And the HR director who had accepted Dylan's statement without questioning the evidence resigned 3 months later. I never returned to work there, not permanently. I walked through those doors one final time to collect the apology letter and clear out what was left of my old locker. This time, nobody whispered. Nobody laughed. Nobody recorded. People stepped aside. Some apologized. Most simply looked ashamed. Mark approached me near the exit. Ethan. I stopped. He looked down. I should have spoken up. Yes. I said. You should have. He nodded. I'm sorry. I believed him. But belief didn't erase damage. I walked out of Hawthorne Logistics for the last time with my name cleared. But my heart was different. Harder. Quieter. I had learned something painful. The truth does not always save you immediately. Sometimes the truth sits in the dark, waiting for one honest person to bring it into the light. For me, that person was Carla. And Frank. And Rebecca. Not my brother. Not my parents. Not the people who claimed to love me. 6 months later, Dylan's trial began. My mother called again the night before I was scheduled to testify. This time, I answered. Her voice was small. Ethan. What do you want? She cried softly. Please don't do this. I already knew what she meant. Don't testify. He could go to prison. He committed a crime. He's your brother. I closed my eyes. There it was again. The sentence that had protected him his entire life. He's your brother. As if blood was supposed to erase betrayal. As if family meant absorbing someone else's damage. As if forgiveness meant pretending consequences were cruelty. I said quietly, where was that sentence when he destroyed me? She sobbed harder. I made mistakes. No. Mom. You made choices. She went silent. You chose him when he lied. You chose him when I begged you to believe me. You chose him when I lost everything. Now you want me to choose him too. Ethan. Please. No. I hung up. The next morning, I testified. I told the truth. Every part of it. The missing badge. The false statement. The meeting. The humiliation. The footage. Dylan sat at the defense table and never looked at me. When the prosecutor played the security footage, the courtroom went silent. There he was. My brother. Pushing stolen inventory through the loading bay. Using my badge. Destroying my life. Frame by frame. Truth by truth. Dylan eventually accepted a plea deal. Raymond received a longer sentence because he had organized the operation. Dylan received prison time, probation, restitution, and a permanent criminal record. My mother didn't speak to me for almost a year after that. At first, it hurt. Then it freed me. I used the settlement money to start over. Not dramatically, not overnight. No private jet. No mansion. No perfect movie ending. I rented a small office space and started a logistics consulting business. At first, it was just me, a laptop, and a used desk. But I knew warehouses. I knew inventory systems. I knew compliance. And now, painfully, I knew exactly how internal theft happened. Companies paid me to find weaknesses before people like Raymond and Dylan exploited them. Within 18 months, I had more clients than I could handle. Frank joined me part-time after retiring. Carla became my operations coordinator. We built something honest from the wreckage. Something mine. 2 years after Hawthorne fired me, I received one final letter from Dylan. It was handwritten. The envelope came from a correctional facility. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Ethan, I know you probably hate me. You should. I hated myself long before all of this happened. I was in debt. I was scared. Raymond said we could pin it on someone clean and buy time. I told myself you would figure it out. I told myself the company would not really press charges. I told myself a lot of things, because I was too much of a coward to face what I did. But the truth is simple. I chose myself. I chose my fear. I chose my lies. And I sacrificed you. I am sorry. Not because I got caught. Because every night in here, I remember your face in that conference room. You looked at me like you were waiting for your brother to save you. And I didn't. Dylan, I read the letter twice. Then I put it back in the envelope. I didn't forgive him that day. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I won't. But I finally understood something. Forgiveness is not a door someone else gets to force open. It is a key you choose to use when you are ready. And I wasn't ready. 3 years after the day I was escorted out of Hawthorne Logistics, I stood in front of a room full of business owners giving a seminar on workplace fraud prevention. On the screen behind me was a slide that said, "Trust is not a security system." The room laughed politely. But I didn't. Because I knew exactly how true it was. After the seminar, a man approached me. He said, "Your company came highly recommended. People say you know how thieves think." I smiled. I know how betrayal works. He didn't understand what I meant. But I did. That night, I drove home past the old Hawthorne warehouse. The building looked the same. Same loading docks. Same parking lot. Same glass entrance. For a moment, I saw the old version of myself walking out with a cardboard box, humiliated and broken. I wanted to tell him something. I wanted to tell him that he would survive. That the truth would come. That the people who abandoned him were revealing themselves, not defining him. That losing everything was not the end. It was the beginning of finally seeing clearly. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. It was my father. We had spoken only a few times since the trial. I answered. "Hello." His voice was quiet. "Your mother is sick." I closed my eyes. There it was. Another test. Another family emergency. Another chance for them to ask from me what they had never given. Loyalty. Compassion. Grace. I visited her 2 days later. Not because I owed her. Because I wanted peace with myself. She was sitting in a chair by the window when I arrived. Older. Smaller. Human. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I failed you." No excuses. No defense. No mention of Dylan. Just 4 words. I waited. She continued. "I wanted to believe Dylan because believing him was easier. Believing you meant admitting I had been wrong about both of my sons." My throat tightened. She wiped her eyes. "But I was wrong. You were innocent. And I let you stand alone." For years, I had imagined that apology. I thought it would make me feel victorious. It didn't. It made me sad. Because apologies cannot return lost years. They cannot undo sleepless nights. They cannot erase the sound of your own brother lying about you in a room full of strangers. But they can mark the place where pretending finally ends. I said, "Thank you for saying that." She reached for my hand. But I didn't promise to rebuild everything. Some bridges can be repaired. Some can only be acknowledged as ruins. My relationship with my parents became quiet after that. Limited. Boundaried. Honest enough to survive. But never innocent again. As for Dylan, I heard he was released early for good behavior. He moved 2 states away. He sent another letter. I didn't open it. Not because I hated him. Because my life no longer revolved around his guilt. That was the final freedom. Not revenge. Not money. Not watching him fall. Freedom was waking up one morning and realizing I no longer needed the people who had refused to stand beside me. Freedom was building a life where my name was clean, my work was respected, and my peace was protected. People ask me sometimes if the security footage saved my life. The answer is no. It saved my reputation. But I saved my life. By refusing to disappear. By refusing to confess to something I didn't do. By refusing to let family pressure become a prison. My brother framed me for theft at work. He thought I would break. He thought I would stay silent. He thought the truth would remain buried behind access logs, fake statements, and family loyalty. But he forgot one thing. Cameras don't care about golden children. Cameras don't care about excuses. Cameras don't care who your mother believes. They record what happened. And in the end, that grainy black and white footage did what my family refused to do. It told the truth. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.